Hey, beautiful souls. We are back on Tuesday for another Transmission Tuesday. We have slightly less awesome video quality today because my computer is having a little moment and I'm borrowing my mom's. So I'm just using her regular webcam, but we will be back to high speed video quality soon. Thank you so much for watching these videos and for joining. And for those of you who watch on Instagram, for your comments, I really appreciate it. And I wanted to bring back our lovely Maureen St. Germain today. The title of this video, Why I Never Say Things Like I'm Tired, or why I Never Say I'm Tired. She talks a little bit about just the energy of language, and she does relate it more to anchoring yourself in 5D. As opposed to this sort of 3D stuck matrix that we find ourselves in most of the time. But some of these thoughts are also kind of from my own experience and from other things I've read over the years. So not only Maureen St. Germain focused today, but she does really have a beautiful chapter on language and on how our language really affects our energetic state and our energetic sort of frequencies. And leave me a comment if you want me to do a video on this in general about your energetic frequency, because it's undeniable that we exist in different states of frequency. You know, somebody who is homeless and who is trapped in a really vicious cycle of addiction, or, you know, has been missing that support that they need, and they really believe that their only way to move forwards or their only way to make a living is to walk the streets, or they feel that's their only option. They're in a different reality and a different energetic frequency than somebody who has been raised in full support with 2 loving parents or more loving adults, and who genuinely believes their world is their oyster, and they eat healthy and they sleep well and they do all the things they need to keep themselves balanced. You know, those are 2 different energetic states. And the thing about language that I really didn't realize until a few years ago was that the words that we choose to employ in our daily lives and the subsequent sort of beliefs that we get from choosing those words directly affect our reality, and they directly affect our energetic state. And where the title for this video came from, Why I Never Say I'm Tired, came from a really close friend of mine whose mom made this comment. She's a shaman and a lawyer. And she made the comment, I've stopped saying I'm tired. I don't say I'm tired anymore. And she kind of spoke a little bit about how when you're constantly saying that you're tired, you're just embodying this sort of discomfort and this feeling that you don't necessarily want to have. And what that does through sort of affirming this state that you don't want to be in is it brings that sort of discomfort and that state that you don't like closer to your reality and more sort of in line with your reality. So, you know, if you were to do this as an experiment and you spent a month saying, I feel scared every day. I feel scared. I feel scared. I feel scared. I bet you'd probably have a day where you go into the grocery store and somebody maybe makes a loud noise and you probably would jump out of your skin because you've been telling yourself and you've been telling your subconscious and you've been telling your body that you're scared for every day for a month. But if you did that same experiment and you practice things like yes, affirmations have their place, and I don't always believe that just saying affirmations are really the direct route to manifesting your reality, but they're very helpful. And if we were to sort of flip that on its head and say, you know, I feel open, or I feel trusting. That's a harder one. I feel trusting. If you were to tell yourself every single day for a month, I feel trusting, every time that little voice came into your head, I feel trusting, I bet you would feel differently at the end of 30 days. And the reason I wanted to talk about this today, and the reason I wanted to bring our attention to language, is because I feel that it is one of those elements that is still relatively unconscious to our power and to how we sort of give ourselves or take power away from ourselves in our day-to-day lives. So another thing I wanted to speak to about words and sort of the energetic of words is, if you take the word, I'm gonna be a little extreme, but if you take the word fuck and you take that into context of things like, I can't fucking believe I'm doing this, or I can't get this fucking thing to work. There's sort of like a peak in that sentence, right? When you use the F word and when you sort of drop that sort of word that has a strong energetic to it, I mean, I totally understand how people, especially on the East Coast, but especially in North America, we often use the F word sort of for effect. But there's an energetic quality and an energetic intensity to that sentence that very much changes when you choose to use words of sort of high energy. Now, I don't think that fuck is a bad word. I don't really believe there are bad words at all. But it is a word that carries intense energy. I mean, it's the only word in our language that simultaneously means like a personal sexual act that doesn't sound all that romantic, to something that's bad, to something that's an exclamation when we sort of have something happen to us, or it's sort of like a response. It carries a lot of weight in that word in general. So if we take that same sentence, I can't really believe I'm doing this, or I can't get this silly thing to work. Maybe that emphasis, for you doesn't feel as strong as of a release, but it also takes that sort of intense peak out of your sentences. So bringing attention to the fact that certain words that you use draw energy and use energy and carry a certain potency to them, and see if you can bring that awareness to the way you use words on a day-to-day basis. So why I never say I'm tired, unless I don't want to sort of exaggerate. I mean, if I get no sleep, I usually say I'm exhausted or I'm burnt out, or I'm out of it, because I feel, really out of sorts if I got no sleep the night before and I have a busy day. But in terms of the energetics of being tired, we're all tired, like women are tired, and members of the BIPOC population are tired, and people who have been oppressed and pushed down are tired, and white hetero cis men are tired too, because they're trying to wrap their brains around what's been happening for the past centuries. But saying that you're tired all the time, it is just bringing you into this sort of like conveyor belt or energetic flow. I always describe this as the salmon stream of people that are just in life and are not really making any choices one way or another to create their reality. And the harsh or the simple reality or the truth of the matter is that you have a choice. Yes, some people are in extenuating circumstances and they really need support, and that support's not given to them, and that makes their lives much more difficult. That I'm not trying to bypass. But when you say things like I'm tired and you slip into that salmon stream of acceptance that things are just the way they are and things are kind of sucky and they're not really working and you don't really think they're going to work out or whatever, it really, you're not only giving your power away giving your power away from your ability to make your reality happen, but you're also kind of just letting your power like fly into the ether, and it will be harnessed by somebody else because you've let it go. So back to the way that our words carry energy and this sort of intention in how we want to create our reality. There's a theory of thought. I'll post the book if I remember it. The book The Secret is kind of based on this concept as well, but this is an older book and I think it's from the 50s. But I'm blanking on the name. That they always talk about how there is a thinking stuff that creates your reality, and when I sort of apply that to the modern world, I just think of that as intention. You know, your thoughts that you have either are thoughts and you let them go, or they're thoughts that you want to harness and then they become your intention. And the next step of sort of manifesting your reality is taking that intention and speaking it out loud. And yes, that can come in the form of affirmations, but it can also come in the form of just making the decision to say, I'm choosing to make a change in my life and it's going to be for the better. And saying that out loud, and maybe saying it to a friend or saying it to yourself, saying it to the mirror. And that sort of, that transition of having the thought and putting it out into the world, either on paper or in spoken word, it creates this sort of concreteness to the decision. And in this book, and in other sort of books about intention and manifestation, what follows after spoken word is action. And if you apply that sort of decision of speaking out loud enough, then eventually you will start to act in accordance with that. You know, so if you constantly say you're tired, then you're probably going to feel more tired more often than you would if you constantly said, I'm taking a rest so I can recover my energy. Or with each step, I gain more energy as you're walking home from work and you maybe feel a little bit lethargic at the end of the day. And after those sort of active, like, employments of your word become practiced enough, eventually that action will become truth, you know? Like, you will gain energy because you're telling your mind and you're telling your body something, and that mind and that body connection will eventually just see it as, oh, okay, this is what's happening, this is our truth. And that's when sort of manifesting your reality really becomes a really beautiful thing. So there are two more sentences that I never use, or I try to never use. And part of my decision to not use these sentences are because I want to own my decision making and harness my own power day to day. And when I use these sentences, I with what we were saying earlier, I would give my power away and sort of give my power away to the ether, or just let it out into the world. So the two sentences I never say are, I can't and I have to. Because when you say the words I can't, like, that's not actually true. Like, you know, maybe you haven't learned how to yet, or, sorry, I'm just gonna get my kitten. Maybe you haven't learned how to yet, or, you know, maybe you don't have the financial means yet, or you're not in a position where you feel like you have the energy to at the moment. Or maybe can't means something different. Like I can't actually means like I'm scared, or I'm afraid to, or I'm nervous about it. So can't really keeps you locked in this like end of the road, like not doing it, don't know how, can't, not going to. It leaves no opportunity for the universe to hand you an option. And if it's an emotion-based can't, then you're not actually getting to the center of what you don't want to do or what you're afraid to do anyway, because you just say I can't. And it's really easy to notice with little kids. Like if little kids are trying to do something and they're either getting frustrated because they don't have the skills or they're scared, they'll say I can't, and it usually comes before tears. And you'll notice that like can't is not an emotion, it's a choice of word. So see if you can get to the center of your can't next time you say it. Is it something that you don't want to do? Because if it's something that you don't want to do, then own that and say I'd rather not, or I don't feel comfortable, or I don't want to, because that keeps that sort of personal power with you. And if it's a different thing, like if it's a fear or if it's a lack of skill, then see if you can kind of peel back the can't and get to the core of what it really is. And the other words, or the other sentence, I try to never use this sentence because it really gives away your sense of choice. Even if it's something that really feels like something you have to do, I have to pick up my kid from daycare. Well, you don't have to. Like, there's nobody standing behind you saying you have to pick your kid up from daycare. You're choosing to pick your kid up from daycare because you love them and because you want to take care of them. But sort of giving this unknown being your power of your decision making is essentially just diluting your sense of personal power into the universe, and really, it's like those like confetti explosion things. You're really just like letting all your personal power just go out into the world, and you're not even really giving it to anyone in particular. You're just giving it away. So the words that you can use instead that Maureen St. Germain mentions in her book are things like, instead of I have to, like, own the decision. Say I choose to, or I'm going to. I used to really say, oh, I have to go home and do my homework, or I have to go home and make dinner. And I've just decided to choose to say, I'm going to go home to make dinner, or I'm going home. And it sort of gives it keeps your communication clear with the other person, because when you bring in the I have to, the other person's sort of looking for this, like, well, what's making you do this? Who is behind you sort of telling you what to do? And that sort of creates this sort of gap in your communication. And I think I lost my train of thought there. Yeah, essentially that's it though, is just when you tell someone else that you have to do things, like, not only are you sort of giving your power away, but you're also blurring that sort of, oh, I know what I was going to say. It makes your communication less clear, because, I'm going home to make dinner, or I have to go home to make dinner. When you say I have to go home to make dinner, there's automatically this sort of feeling behind you of like, oh, well, what happens if you don't? Or what's making you, and again, like, you have to go home and make dinner for your kids. Well, you don't have to. I mean, your kids would probably not be very happy if they're young enough that they don't make dinner by themselves yet. But there's, like, it's just taking away that sort of energy of being forced to do something that you have no control over. one of the phrases that I really like that Maureen Saint Germain mentions is that giving those sort of words power, like have to, it keeps you locked in disempowerment, and it keeps you locked in this sort of energy of 5D. It keeps you in the salmon stream. So when you choose to be more conscious of how you speak, or you choose to be more conscious of the words that you use, and you decide to take responsibility for your life instead of keeping yourself in this sort of victim mindset where the bully is sort of no one, is sort of this like all-seeing whoever is that's making you do these things. When you choose to be more connected with how you speak, there's a couple of things that will shift for you. And one of them is that you will feel immediately more empowered, and you will feel stronger in your sense of self. And you'll stop feeling like the world is kind of getting away from you, because your energy will be closer to you all the time. And the other really sort of bonus thing that you'll notice is that you actually become more accepting of yourself and of your emotions, and more accepting of others. Because when you do things like you peel back the can't and you figure out what emotion is behind that, or you know, you peel back the I'm tired and you figure out what's actually making you unhappy instead of maybe exhausted, or maybe it's overwhelmed, maybe you need more support. You know, the more you can get through your use of language and into the emotion, then it's going to be easier for you to validate what you're experiencing, because, you know, you may be exhausted and that might need validating. And you're also going to be able to sort of move through that emotion once you've named it and move to a process of healing it. And what we know from being more in touch with our emotions is that the more we're connected with how we feel, immediately the more compassionate we are with others. It's just a really beautiful truth that when you are in touch with how you're feeling and you are aware of how you're feeling, you are immediately more compassionate with others, because you're not projecting. So I hope that made sense. I'm sorry about the little blip in the middle there. The laptop froze. So yeah, I hope you have a really beautiful day. Please leave me a comment. I would love to hear if anything in this video you would like me to expand on, or whether you would like me to make a video on some of the things I mentioned earlier. Yeah, I can leave a link to Maureen Saint Germain's book underneath. I highly, highly recommend you read it. And, I'm also offering free readings. So I am going to post a link below. If you're on Instagram, the link is in my bio. Yeah, I'm offering free readings. So get on that while it's still available, because it's not going to be available forever. And I hope you all have a really beautiful day, and sending lots of blessings.